Welcome along to South Today's Sport. Earlier this week you would have heard All Black legend Sir Wilson Winaray passed away, and we're going to reflect on that stellar career. Just a couple of highlights before we get into the discussion. Winaray had a colossal record with the All Blacks, 77 matches between 57 and 65. That included 32 tests, and he was captain on all but 2 occasions. He played for Wairarapa in 53, Mid-Canterbury in 54, Manawatu in 55, Canterbury in 56, 57, Waikato in 58, and Auckland 61 times between 59 and 66. He was first capped in 1957 Tour of Australia, and after leading the under-23s became the All Black captain in 1958, aged just 23. He led the All Blacks against the 59 Lions, the 60 South African team. That was a tour, of course, France in 61, twice against the Wallabies in 62, and the 63-64 tour of Britain and France. And along the way, the prop scored 50 tries at first class level, which was an astonishing achievement even in today's era. Now, someone who played alongside him can tell us all about the man himself, of course, is former All Black Kevin Laidlaw, who went to South Africa in 1960 and also, of course, conceded the shield to him in 59 when Winaray was part of that Auckland team. Good evening, Kevin. Welcome along.
Good evening, Tom.
Lots of accolades about the man. Are they all true? I'm sure from your personal experiences you can endorse them.
Oh, well, I mean, anybody that knew him couldn't help but have good words to say about him. I'm quite sure about that. On or off the field, he was just a shining example for anybody that was playing rugby or whatever he took on. He did a job of it. He was a tremendous person. Yeah.
Lots of talk about his leadership ability, and of course that went through to industry later on. What was it about his style, his personal or his persona that made him such a good leader?
Well, the thing that struck me about him, Tom, is that you never knew he was a leader. And by that I mean he was never sort of going round, you know, telling you to do this or telling you to do that, or you had to do this or you had to do that. You just sort of listened to him talking, and you knew what he was getting at, or knew what he wanted without any force about him. You know, it was just a
no table thumping, swearing.
Great personality. You know, there was none of the you know, sort of all hands in a bunch or all that sort of carry on. It was just a quiet word, and yeah.
Amazing. Because in those days, I mean, on that tour, you spent an awful lot of time in each other's company, wouldn't you? I mean, there were 3-month tours, day in, day out.
Oh well, yeah. Well, we were away for 4 months on that tour, and all that time, you, as has been said about him, you would never hear him raise his voice even, you know. Yeah. So it was just, most people at some stage just sort of get a bit upset and sort of, you know, come on, pull your head in or something, or wake your ideas up or something. But no, never. It wasn't the thing that he did. Right. Yeah. What
about as a player? How did you rate him as a prop?
Well, as a prop at that stage in 1960, he was just sort of holding his own.
Right. Yeah. In good company, of course.
Yeah, and possibly if he hadn't have been captain, he may not have been in the team.
Right.
You know, but because of his leadership, he was always in the team.
Right.
And he was swapped around a few times out of the front row and played loose a few games. I'm just not too sure how many, but he played as a loose forward a few times, and he loved doing that too.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So obviously he had ball skills, scoring 50 tries. He knew how to hang on to the ball.
Yeah. Well, he knew when to pass and all that sort of thing too, and he did it well, as you've probably seen. I've seen a few clips just recently. You know, nice easy dummy, and he wanders over to score in the Barbarians that game.
He never come across to me, and of course I've never personally met him, just with the interviews. Is a particularly aggressive person. For a front row burly forward in those days, did he have a bit of mongrel on the field, or was he always a gentleman?
No, he was. I don't know that I ever saw him get aggravated and throw a punch. He seemed to be able to talk these fellas, you know. They say not too much of that, or something will happen. You know, that sort of atmosphere that he, you know, but like. Kevin Skinner never used to do
he never used to negotiate with them.
Like that.
So they had contrasting styles, you'd have to say.
Yeah, that just seemed to, because he was a good boxer too, of course. Winaray was.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Now he spent some time in Southland. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's way back in the past.
Yeah, well, he was at Lincoln College. That was in It was in 1952, and most of the ones, when they got there, they spent, I'm not sure whether it was 6 months, I think it was about a 6 months farm cadet that they used to go out on. So in 1952 he came down to Southland, and he was playing up in northern Southland, and at that stage he would have, he was only 16 or 17 in 1952, right. And the northern ones were wanting to play him in their team, but they decided against it. They couldn't play somebody that was only 16 or 17 in their team. So that was when he went away up to Manawatu, was it? Next.
Well, Wairarapa, well, he played for 6 provinces in those days, which is very unusual for players to move around, but because of the job, obviously. But he didn't have trouble getting picked. Yeah. No, well, he obviously was, had that ability quite young. Yeah. But I never saw him play when he was down here or anything. Right. But then we heard later on that as he went away that he had, had that ability, and just sort of carried on. Brian Lahore talks about him, of course, going up there, because he would have been playing, and Brian wouldn't have been playing then probably. Yeah, because Brian started after him. 63, 64, I think it was. Now, of course, another former All Black, Southland Soper, you know particularly well. He's recalled some experiences with you today, in fact, about.
Well, Ack actually started with Wilson in Ceylon in 1955. When he first played with Wilson, and Ack was actually captain of that team that went to Ceylon. And then in '57 they went to Australia, and then Japan in 1958. The '57 they were under 21 teams, but the Japan team was under 23. Yeah. So those other ones were colts, so that the colt could be anyone up to 21, you see. Yeah.
Now, part of that story I know is a financial contribution from the players, completely foreign to today.
Yeah, well, actually, it was just something that I didn't realise myself actually until Ack was telling me that when they went to Australia, it cost them, they had to put in £250. It would have been in those days, and when they went to Ceylon, it was £50. £50, sorry, £50.
What did the Players Association have to say about that, Kevin?
Yeah, I don't know whether they would have cancelled the contract or not, Tom. They wouldn't have had much option about who they were going to play for, though, in those days. They'd had to come back to New Zealand anyway, you see. So,
great, yeah.
Wouldn't have been,
but it does show you what sacrifices were made. Obviously, when you're away, you're not earning money, but you also had to raise some funds. So that was a pretty tough call.
Oh well, I mean, even when we went away, well, our subscription, we didn't have to put in, of course, to pay for it. But if I hadn't have been supported by my own club, I would have found it terribly difficult while I was away. Yeah, but coming from a small club. They did things before you went away and raised money, and I can say this now that the money that I was given by my club was the highest contribution to any player on that tour.
Right.
Yeah. Which
just testimony to the support
for the community that that I had come from. So,
but we use the word legend with a lot of players quite loosely, I feel sometimes. Appropriate fit for Wilson?
Oh, it would have to be, I would think. Yeah, would have to be. Yeah.
Kevin, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. It's been a pleasure.
Good.
And just reminding you too that we are repeating our edition of Champions in Their Words, which is a full-length interview with Sir Wilson Winray and Joseph Romanus, recorded some years ago. That'll play at 6 o'clock this Sunday night, so please check that out. And I'm sure you'll enjoy reflecting on a wonderful rugby history with a true legend. That's the Sound Today tonight. See you tomorrow.